Welcome to the weekly roundup, the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga and wellness world and what we've been coaching our clients through. I am Bridget. I'm joined by my fellow coaches, Carol, Terry, and Josh. And Josh is going to kick us off today talking emotional intelligence.
We're fired up, so we got to
We're
start.
so fucking
Yeah,
fired up.
it's already going a little off the rails, so we'll try and rein it in just a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah,
but I just will say one thing before we get started. If
Carrie.
you haven't watched Netflix Battle of the Bands, it's epic. You gotta watch it. It's great
Oh,
escapism, and the singing is amazing. And unfortunately, my favorite band did not win. I'm not gonna, no spoiler alert here. I'm not gonna say anything, but if you're into that type of thing, it is really cool to watch. I'll just say.
I got it. I have to say, I love me a brain rot show.
Yeah.
Like you got to. I can't actually watch one. I can't watch more than one. Two, I can only watch one per quarter, or I get angry at myself. Like it just like hurts me inside. But you kind of need one. And
But
huge shout out to Carol who got me onto like Love Is Blind at one point. We just sessioned.
Yeah. Carol
I was
Carol
like,
loves her
this
brain rot.
this
Love Is
show is
Blind.
so it's so I can't believe that this
so
even exists, but
actually-
also I can't stop watching it.
The making of the band riffs off of, I found out, Love Is Blind, because it starts with, and that's the other thing that's really, really interesting, is they're all from like 19 to 28. And then just seeing like the difference between a 20-year-old, and I'd forgotten this, a 20-year-old and like a 24-year-old in terms of maturity is
Mm,
amazing. We forget that. We're so far, well, I'm so far removed from my 20s at this point, but it's like, holy smokes, the difference between 19 and 22, between 20 and 24, just in terms of just emotional maturity is pretty interesting. And the other thing
mm.
with the Love and Blind connection is it starts with 50 young singers. They're in like little sound booths. And this is, I'm not giving anything away. And so then each singer gets, it's Carol's turn. Carol goes out and sings her song, whatever it is. And all the people in the booths are listening, and you have up to 10 likes. And if you like Carol, you tap the little button, and you have to get a minimum of 5 likes to progress on. So they actually don't meet until after they form their band and they're singing their first song together.
Oh, interesting.
So that was super
Interesting.
duper interesting, because there was this one young woman who's like, oh, she built her match. Oh, I hope they're hot. They better be hot because I want to be a hot girl. She was all about they had to be hot, right? And so it's just really, really super.
I mean,
Yeah.
So emotional intelligence.
you're gonna be a pro band. Like that is part of the formula.
Well, let me tell you,
Name one band
watch.
that's not covered in makeup or big hair or like some really
Oh,
obscure other covering thing
yeah,
that if
no.
you just look at them across the board, they're just ugly.
Anyway, all I'll say is just check it out. Anyway, nice segue
Zero.
into emotional intelligence, because
So emotional intelligence around
sorry, I just really
uh
stole it there,
well
as I'm wont to do on a weekly basis.
emotional intelligence I find to be a very interesting ongoing conversation because it's a modern way that we look at a lot of the conversation in traditional yoga and philosophical conversation. And so, because you could sum up, in my opinion, the majority of yogic text to the idea of separation from your emotion and realizing that it's not something you're actively controlling, but that you can actively be non-reactive to, and therefore it can't control you. And that's the liberation component of it. And then yoga is the path for that and multiple other liberations. What's interesting right now is, and from a coaching standpoint, is this is an ongoing conversation because like top three problems that every studio on the planet has is staff management always. And I was thinking about it, like if you had to whittle it down to why is that the problem, it's because people. It's because emotions. Like that's it, full stop. Not people like because people are shitty, because people are gonna people because we're emotional beings. So your understanding and personal work for yourself, and then by extension, your awareness and emotional intelligence in your environment is literally your fucking superpower from a managerial standpoint. And I would say from a sales standpoint, from a customer service standpoint, like there's so many things that go sideways, not because they are not solvable, but because the communication and feeling of the situation, no one grabs the reins and like is the emotionally intelligent leader in the moment to smooth it over. And I don't mean like people pleasing. I mean, you can say no and someone cannot like that. And you can also still end that moment positively, basically. So it's this thought that can you control someone else's emotional state? Like someone who you really, really know well, could you do something that would very likely affect their emotional state?
Mothers, because mothers installed our operating buttons and they know which buttons to push. That's a friend of mine said that. But, and also if you're close with your, yes, you could, what will piss your, like my sibling, I can tell you with certain things that my sister are going to go through the roof on. So yes, I think the emotional intelligence part of it is knowing that, yeah, I can do that and I'm not going to. I don't
Could
know.
be. I'll let you guys pipe in.
I'll show.
Um, I I'm very passionate about this topic. And I think the thing that comes to mind, like so much stuff comes to mind because this is stuff that I really like live and breathe. Like this is stuff I'm constantly talking about and thinking about and working on in my own businesses. But something that comes to mind that I really, really, if I could bestow one piece of information, if I could beam it into the brains of all other business owners in general, but yoga studio owners specifically, is that I really believe that the only way that you can continue to grow as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, is if you continue to grow like personally, like if you continue to grow emotionally and like develop yourself. And if your business stagnates, I think a really fun way to mix things up and to see it unstagnate is to work on your own self. And it's a hard thing to talk about in like business conversations because it's really hard, I think, to grow as a person. It's hard to talk about like what works because I think different things work for everybody as people, but every time I try and get around this conversation, it always comes back to this conversation for me. It always comes back to this fact for me is the only way to grow your business, to grow your life as a business owner and as an entrepreneur is to develop yourself personally. And I think that's just all about growing emotionally. I think it's the one and the same thing. And that's all I got.
I just posted in our chat. I just had exact conversation with a client yesterday who reminded me somebody we both actually it was the former owner of my studio who passed away untimely at 53 years old years ago. Anyway, he said you hire employees and then people show up. Human beings show up.
Yeah, totally. I think, Bridget, that you got the quote of the day for sure. The only way to grow your business is if you grow yourself. And also, like, literally, that's yoga in a nutshell. There's one interesting text. It's this old book that I have downloaded. It's from like 1915, written by a group of obscure yogis. And what's interesting about it is it's like it hasn't been filtered through a lot of our modern culture yet, but it's modern enough that the way they articulate things makes more sense than reading, quote, traditional text. Because I don't know if you've tried to read some of that. It's fucking wild. What are we talking about? You have to literally reread every paragraph and contemplate what they're trying to say. So, but they make a statement, something to the effect of like, the only life endeavor is to know yourself. There is nothing else to do. That's it. And as much as you try to do anything else, it'll just come back to that. And so business, I think, same thing. Here's the thought is, if you can not control in a controlling way, but like if you know that you can impact somebody's emotional state, someone that you really know, and we often immediately take that because we say, notice that like we often say emotion and we think negative. We're like, oh, I could piss someone off. But we don't think I could make someone happy. Like that's not the natural place that it goes. And so obviously there's a relationship level thing, but there's also the element of like with your team, I it's not my responsibility for your emotional state. I need to actually stay disconnected from that as a manager of a team in a studio. And also, it would just be really good leadership if I, over time, paid attention to the way to keep the emotional health of my group on an individual and group level on the positive side of things, even when I got to ask them to do hard things or whatever else. And so, one thing that has come up in conversations I've been having this last week in this realm is just, especially when the business stresses you out and your enthusiasm is waned, especially if you're not making real money or whatever else, especially when you really just wanted to depend on someone and then they show up not dependable for a week or whatever. What owners articulate to me is like, I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the time for that. I don't have the steam for that. And then we default to that kind of rigid thinking of like, just do it because we fucking said so, which is like not even an illegitimate thought. And that there's a hard ceiling of how far that will get you. So, to your point, Bridget, by growing yourself and this emotional intelligence, adding the awareness piece to it, and like actively pursuing getting better at this with interactions, yeah, that does require a lot of energy and effort. And that's how you get results that are abnormal. Like if you want exceptional results, this is one of the areas of exceptionality, I think. Carol, what do you and I talk a lot about like awareness. To me, that's also like a component of this too.
Well,
Maybe
I
that's the
think,
first part.
yeah, I love what everyone's saying here. And one of the things Terry had mentioned was like you can control whether or not you trigger somebody else a lot of times, but also taking the awareness to yourself, right? Like if an employee or a student or whatever, like you have to control your emotions. And it goes to what Bridget was saying, like you need to grow enough to be like separating myself from the reaction, which is again all about yoga. Like, okay, let me breathe before I decide to have an emotion or react about it. And so it's all, yeah, I think the owner a lot of times, if they haven't done that work, it does create chaos and wreak havoc on a team. So you exactly what Bridget is saying, like you need to know yourself enough to pause and decide. And because the other thing about this too, and I learned this a long time ago, it's not about you. A lot of times, like the question or the rub or whatever it is, it's happening. It's not even, we take it so personally a lot of times, and it has nothing to do with you. It's something with them. And once you learn that, that's a really freeing feeling as well. It's like, well, why don't you go work on yourself? This has nothing to do with me. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I man, is that ever true? Like, and what a hard thing I think as an owner to get. And like, I definitely can think back to scenarios I've been in on both sides of the equation. Like one story was a job that I had when I was maybe 14, 15, was working on these docks, doing like boat rentals and maintenance under docks and blah blah blah. And the guy who owned the place, it was a good job. He kind of just let me, like, I worked hard, but he kind of let me go and whatever. But man, if you fucked up, he just lost it on you. And so he had no emotional control. And it was absolutely predatory in that he was able to take advantage of my naivety and youngness and inability to better articulate. And honestly, it ended in I rented a boat out. The people who rented it hit a log in the water and sank the boat. Luckily, we got it back to the dock. Then they tried to blame me because I was the kid. They're like, he didn't tell us we're not allowed to go to that part of the lake, which I did, and we had on record, and they signed a contract for it. And he backed them and yelled at me. I finally lost it and told him to fuck off, and we got in a physical fight. He put me in a headlock, and in front of like 30 people on this dock, I'm like, if you don't let go of me right now, like I'm gonna hit you. And he didn't, and I hit him and knocked him in the water when I was 15. And then the cops were called, and like it was wild. And then he like saw me months later and gave me a hug and was like, "Oh, we're still friends." I'm like, "Don't ever fucking talk to me." But so I got to experience like the extreme on that side of it. But same thing on the other side, me being affected. A teacher that we hired had a real personal problem. They were very clearly, I'm not actually 100% sure, bulimic, anorexic, and like not healthy. And it became a problem, and people would comment on it all the time. And we really started to put certain boundaries in place around their health, and they just wouldn't. You can't make someone deal with their problems, basically. But their problems did spill over into the business. And so I had to ultimately let them go as one of the few people I ever just straight fired. And so there's more to that story, obviously. But the big epiphany with that was just like, man, I was so emotionally upset about it on every level, like feeling bad and what can I do or not, but then also pissed off. And just what about, like, they absolutely stole my peace for months of time, and the situation did. And so, but after that, I got to tell you, like, I was bulletproof with employee. Like, there was no shit you could come to me with where I was like, you couldn't steal it. I was like, whatever, for the most part. So here's the thought: is there's actually an emotional equation. And so we've kind of heard about this, but the reason it's becoming an equation in the idea of logical thinking is because of AI. But don't worry, Carol, we're not going that direction just yet. Carol's like, if I fucking hear about AI anymore, I swear. The idea is your expectation or preference compared to your perception in the moment. That's the awareness part, equals your emotional reaction. And so there's deeper pieces of that, like your expectation or preference, that's part of your history, that's part of your wiring, that's part of your whatever, learned behavior, culture, etc. But the thing that I find really interesting is this perception of the moment piece. I like, as an individual, understanding your own preferences and expectations, that's actually like hardwiring, and it changes over time, but should you even resist that? But the perception in the moment piece, you have a lot of control or a lot of potential awareness there. And so I think as an owner, and then seeing that in your team as well, it's like, I've seen this a lot. Someone on your team is really upset about something. And it's like, you're like, I don't get it. I don't get what you're so, like, why is this so upsetting? Because you don't see it the way that I see it, is the way that we would explain that. But that's this perception thing. And so you can't go and be like, hey, you should just change your preference or your expectation around this. Like, that's a ridiculous ask of someone from an employer. But you can go and talk to them about their perception. You can unpack that part. You can help to sort of reshape that perception or to find a different place, and that would change the emotional reaction to it in theory. This is why when we go do sales trainings, when we do a sales boot camp, the first meeting is an all-team meeting. It's at least 4 hours long, which every owner's like, does it have to be 4 hours? And we're like, yes, it fucking like there's no way it's going to be less than that. And 90% of that time, we're just talking about this perception of sales, the perception of engaging someone in a conversation, the perception of pitching someone something. Because until that's there, doesn't matter. Techniques are irrelevant.
And talk about emotions and reactions,
Yeah.
right? About perceptions of things. Because in pretty much almost every onsite, there's at least one teacher, and sometimes desk staff, but usually it's a teacher, who I think is coming from a place of fear, is like trying to derail the process. And then just understanding, asking those questions about, well, that's curious. Let's talk about that. Because it's just they have all these perceptions around sales and how it's not yogic and all this other stuff. We can go spend lots of time talking about that. And it really boils down to is this, they're not comfortable. They're just not comfortable. And so some of it's just understanding where they're coming from and then just helping them hopefully to change their perspective. We're not asking them, it's just change your perspective. And typically we're able to do that. Sometimes no. And sometimes people will self-select and like, yeah, if this is the way you're going in this business, I don't want to be part of it. And that's fine too. Bridget.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna ask if like each of you could only give like one piece, like one tip. It could be a book, it could be like a like small strategy or anything that you have used to grow your own emotional intelligence or grow as a person. What would it be?
I'm
Do more
waiting.
yoga.
Do more yoga.
Yeah.
This crazy thing. It's this crazy thing called
Honestly.
yoga.
Have you ever heard of yoga? You guys, it's crazy. It's
Well,
like so good.
what do you do, Carol? I mean, what do you do?
Quite honestly, I mean,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I was in my early 20s, I was stressed. I still had like everything if it rubbed me wrong, it went to 10, it wasn't like, oh, chill. Like the yoga really changed me. I don't know what else. I mean, of course, there's books I've read. I can't really think of anything right now off the top of my head. I, honestly, that changed me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely yoga, but also just early on, recognizing the feeling when I'm about to feel like I'm going to lose it. Right. Just understanding and we actually had a phrase for it in my family, and I think I shared it. It's called flipping the board. So when we used to play board games as kids growing up, name it, Monopoly, Sorry, whatever it is. And if I wasn't doing well, of course, my older siblings are pointing out that I'm not doing well. I would get so upset. I would get to the point where I would flip the board.
Yeah.
So that, nobody won. And through the years, I've learned to recognize, and I still get it sometimes, is I get that feeling and I recognize it now. And I'm like, okay, that's when I know I need to like, just let it go. And if it's something I'm trying to understand, like AI, and I can feel that feeling in me, I do. I had that moment last week on our call with Carol. I'm not with Carol, with Mara, about some things we're putting in place with the YC, and I can feel that feeling. And I was like, just take a breath. It'll be fine. Because once you do it a few times, and it's usually around something that I'm not understanding. So for me, that's just something I've learned through the years is you don't want me to flip the board. Trust me.
What about you, Bridget?
Yeah. Well, first, Terry, I will say I am also a reformed board flipper in those exact scenarios. Siblings play like my siblings still talk about it, like, oh, you don't want to play with Bridget. She'll get so mad if she's losing. But But one thing that was coming to mind for me, and also like yoga, yes, was my gateway to all of this. So yoga is the ultimate answer. But um, one thing that really grows me as a person and as a boss, specifically as a leader, is when I feel myself really resisting wanting to do something hard, wanting to do something that I'm really scared to do, that I'm really like dreading, but I know it's good, like I know it's ultimately the right thing to do, I have to do it. And
Mm,
then that always leads, honestly, it usually leads to like magical things happening in my life. Like it creates a lot of magnetism for me. And it 100% feels like a cheat code to growing as a leader.
eat the
Josh?
frog.
Eat the frog? What's that?
Oh, that's an old book Terry references a lot.
Yeah, Swallow the Frog. Well, Swallow
Yeah.
the Frog has really more to do with procrastination. It's called
Oh,
Swallow the Frog. It's by Brian Tracy. He's been around, business guru, been around, for, probably close to 40 years now, certainly 30. And his thing is, if there's one thing that you're avoiding doing, we can always make ourselves busy and like, oh, this one thing on my list I need to get done. I don't want to do it, but oh, I got to do all these other things at the end of the day. It's like, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow.
yeah.
Is he's like, the preface says, you got the one thing you don't want to do, eat the frog.
Yeah.
Do that first thing in the
Yeah.
morning. And then he said, you'll be amazed at how much more productive you become because then it's not weighing over your head the whole day.
Yeah. Totally.
Yep.
Same goes if you need to have a difficult conversation with someone. Do you need to respond? Oh my God, I should, this whole, with one of my clients for me this afternoon, this whole crazy exchange with a new client in a hot studio, and it's just like mind-blowing what sometimes studio owners have to deal with, kind of thing. But anyway, so yeah, so eat the frog. Do the one thing you don't want to do first.
What was the original question?
What's one tip you can give to like grow emotionally to like a studio owner who's sitting there being like, okay, well, I want to grow emotionally. Like, what should I do?
Hmm. Hmm. I'm gonna come back to it. I can't pin it down. I've got too many at the same time. I mean, obviously yoga, like to go to Carol's point too, younger me as well, like that was the big thing
Yeah.
was I thought that I was like a chill dude and I wasn't. I was an asshole. But like I very legitimately believe that you cannot practice yoga, and here's my personal opinion, hard. I mean,
Hard.
like you gotta be pushing.
Yeah.
The force part is a requirement of this.
Yeah.
You can't do that on at a certain frequency and just be a complete a-hole. Like it's like I don't know what that is. And there's not I've been in professional training centers for hockey, other workout things, sport, whatever. Like that all also is good in that direction. Yoga is different. I don't know what it is. You don't have to know what you're doing. You don't have to, it's not because you think of the spiritual part of it. None of that. You can't do asana practice at high intensity, at high frequency, and just at some point, something, I don't know, something flips. So certainly
Mhm.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
One thing. I'm gonna come back to it. Okay, here's the like closing thought on this, and then let's spin to the next thing. So there was a study that I was reading, and I guess it's been done a few times now. It's super fascinating. They took two groups of people and they gave them both a complex problem that they would need to solve. But then one of the groups they said, "Hey, solve this problem." And then the second group, they said, okay, you're going to solve this problem. Wait, real quick, solve this complex sequence first, this like mathematical sequence. And so they did it, and then they were like, what's the answer to the other problem? And the group that had to solve the sequence, basically the distracted group, outperformed in their answers like by a wide margin. And so they did an fMRI or whatever it is to see like what's firing in the brain. And what was fascinating was the group that was distracted, the subconscious area of their brain that would be part of the difficult, complex problem solving was in fact working
Yeah.
without their conscious awareness of it, because their conscious awareness was on the mathematical problem. And so it's just this idea of like, where does real intelligence reside inside of you? And it's partially in your conscious mind, but it is way like super strong in your subconscious mind. And that's tied to this emotional element of things to some extent, is the theory. So to me, you could sum that up as like, it's also part of this emotional intelligence, detachment awareness is the trust your gut. And so maybe that's the thing I would give. Like
Yeah.
sometimes in coaching, we say, look, because an owner will be describing this scenario and then this, but it's not their fault, that, and then this thing here. And they're painting this whole picture and trying to like rationalize it all into this, whatever. And when we get to the crux of what the problem is that they're actually describing, sometimes what we have to say as a coach is like, yeah, and despite everything, like when you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't mean from an ego place, but like if you own your own business and you're like, this has to happen, or we got to do this or whatever, and it's non-negotiable, and other people don't agree with that. But like if you just know that you're right, like in your core, not for the sake of being right, you just know.
Yeah.
That's the like trust your gut part. And so maybe you have to utilize that sometimes. Like there'll be a lot of energy against something, but if you just know, like I'm just fucking right, like this is right.
That is such a skill that you can develop. And the way you can develop it is by remembering, this has happened to me so many times, remembering when you had that gut feeling, but you ignored it, and then watching everything blow up in flames
Hmm.
in front of you and
Yeah.
be like, fuck, I knew that wasn't the right thing, but everybody
Yeah.
told me that it was the right thing. And that's happened the most for me, which is definitely my biggest area of growth with employees of like, I knew she wasn't right the first message she sent to the WhatsApp group, and I didn't go with my gut. Um, that's
Yeah.
happened like 3 times. And so then you remember that that happened and you mark it down in your little book of great ideas you had that you didn't follow. And then the next time it comes up, even if it seems like crazy and scary and like everyone's telling you to do something else, if you have that same feeling, then you follow it and then you see what happens. And like, if it goes bad, it goes bad. Like it's just yoga, like it'll be fine.
I remember when I worked in corporate, we had, we were major Fortune 500. So obviously, not that that means anything, it's just big. And so we had professional HR people. And our head of HR for the whole corporation, when he was hired, was going around different facilities. Anyway, we were talking about some things. One thing he said, and it really stuck with me. And if you talk with HR professionals, talking about your gut, is that when you're interviewing somebody walks in, you pretty much make up your mind yes or no within the first few minutes, and then you spend the
Mm.
rest of the interview either confirming, yep, I'm right, or something that overwhelmingly changes your mind about this person. But typically, your gut reaction is like, yep or no. Most of the time is accurate, which is why we always say you only have one chance to make a good impression. Right. So it really does boil down to, as much as we like to think, we still are very much instinctual beings.
Yeah.
And like you said, trust your gut. There's a lot of evidence, a lot. And that little voice in your head, some people call it God. You can call it whatever you want. It could be God, it could be the universe, whatever. It's that little voice in your head, or the little hairs that stand up on the back of your neck over something, or you feel that contraction of your sphincter muscle. Right. That's our old tail. It's like the curling of the tail. No,
Didn't see that.
seriously.
Sure, I did just, that was a curveball. I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Wait,
Uh,
it took
Remember,
my
I
brain was
was
like, wait, did she say sphincter?
sphincter. I did. Remember, I was a liberal arts major, which means I know a little about a lot of things.
I
And I
love it.
remember that from our anthropology class, because it's that curve, it's that gut reaction, that clenching of the gut. That's like it's preparing. It's like you're tucking the tail and you're getting ready. It's that, again, it's a little bit precursor to flight or fight.
Okay, let's take it this way. Carol, I'm curious what you think about this. There's a post that's very active in our group right now, in our Facebook group, talking about offering limited memberships, which is actually it's not in fact counter to what we coach to in frameworks by itself, but we often find ourselves coaching away from that model because of what we've experienced and seen. The way that I would tie it to this conversation here too is like, in general, just limited memberships, yes, no, why, how do you make that decision? But slightly controversial take, I think that this conversation is more prevalent right now because it's come up a lot. We have a lot of owners bringing this up for two reasons. One, it's just we've gone through the wave of everyone figured out offer an unlimited membership that makes sense for your median user, blah, blah, blah. Like that's been normal. So now you don't feel like you're doing something special and different. So you want to change it. It's like there's a boredom with that, one. But two, in certain groups, in the hot yoga world, for example, everyone is moving to that. Like influential people are moving to that model. So now everyone else is like, oh, well, maybe I should look at it. We should move at it too. And so I see this as a starting trend. And I think that a lot of people who are coming and asking about it and thinking about it are doing it from an emotional, reactive place to the FOMO of the trend in the groups that they're in, not because they have a real reason for it. Not both are true, but like, I don't know. That's how I would tie it to what we're talking about. That I see that. I see this as sort of like a trend thing and a reactive thing.
Yeah, I guess a gut check. Why? Why are you even bringing this up? One of the, I mean, I think the purpose, from what I understood from the post in the Facebook group, was there's a lot of people at the studio that are no-showing, and culturally in the area, it's not appropriate to do like a no-show fee, is the way I understood part of the issue here. So for that reason, there's not a one size fits all. So if your gut is telling you that that's something you want to try, sure, okay, you know what, why not? What's the problem there? I guess for the other studios that are sort of more our typical studio, there's so many people that are like, we have these overusers. People are coming 30 plus times a month. And I'm like, is that true? And how many do you actually have? Have you like plotted it out? And if like almost 80-20 rule, if fewer than 20% are overusers, like, do you really need a limited membership because so many people are taking up spaces? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. So I don't know. Lots of hands raised. Somebody else go.
I was just gonna ask a question, so I'll go first if that works. But if like when does it matter if it's culturally appropriate or like when do you just say like okay, well this might not be culturally appropriate or like not done in the area, but like you can't what the fuck else am I supposed to do kind of thing. Like what I guess this is more of a broader question, but like, how do you decide if it's something that you can do anyway, even if it's not culturally like done?
So many ways
I
to
can
go with this. So many ways to go with this. So first, a couple of points is one, if you are hesitant, and I've posted about this before, about charging late cancel or no-show fees. I have a client that does, but she needs to do it. So what she does is all that money is collected. She's a huge animal lover, so it goes to the local humane society. And so people are like, well, at least it's going to be charged. I know it's going to a good cause. Another client, they use it for their karma fund. So if someone's struggling financially, then they use that to maybe, help someone offset their membership or offset their class card or something like that. So if a part of it, regardless beyond culture, if there's an uncomfortability, if you're uncomfortable with it because you don't want to charge for that, then those are some things you can do. But the other thing, the other point in the post is that I think that a limited option can be good when you have a smaller studio. Particularly when, like it was the poster, the OP has a smaller studio. And actually Bridget, who's just one of our newer coaches, she just opened what we're calling a micro studio, where it's a very
You mean Maria?
Oh, Maria.
Maria,
I
what
was
did I
like,
say?
did I?
No. Oh, did I say? Yeah, Maria. A very limited studio. And then I also have a studio, a client in Canada who had to do the same thing. Small studio, was like 15 capacity. People were, so what they did was this is what they did, which has been interesting. They only have a finite number of unlimited memberships that they sell. And when they get to that number, they don't sell anymore. And it's like, well, you have to get a limited one. And then if someone cancels, then like, okay, we have a unlimited available. So they've worked that, because a lot of it is just getting, making sure people have a chance to practice. And so if you really are a limited studio, then I might not even, and if you offer an unlimited, make it so that you're going to get more revenue per class, because that's the other thing you're maximizing for, is revenue per class. Josh.
Yeah, I mean, the actual answer is same always. Critical thinking mindset. This is the way that we apply it. Is why we say like there isn't a one size fits all. We have best practices, we have frameworks, we have tester questions, etc. And in the end, it's always, what am I actually solving for? Like, is there a problem that I need to solve here? Yes or no?
Right.
And or is this maybe not a problem, but a prohibiting factor? Like if I was to change this, it would move me forward and open up more opportunity. And if it's not one of those things, then like, what are you talking about? It's just why do anything in that case? And so usually this has, and this is not as common a conversation in the yoga world. In recent years, it's come up a lot more, which is cool. It's a supply and demand question. It's as simple as that. If you have a 40-person yoga room, or a 30 and a 20, or there's some studios we have that have like 80-person full capacity rooms, like what are you worried about someone over practicing? And so you got to think of the impact of a bunch of options and different tiers and blah, 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 and the confusion of the sales thing. And so you don't need it from a capacity standpoint. And then also, do you have an incorrect thought, for lack of a better way to describe it? The thought being, if I offer more options at different tiers and price points, my menu will be larger, I will appease more people, I will therefore have more people come in, and I will make more sales. That's just not how that works. Period. Full stop. Never has. It's not human psychology. So that part, it's like you might be trying to solve the problem with a mechanism that doesn't solve the problem, in fact. And we can back that up with a lot of data. To your question, Bridget, of the cultural appropriateness for things like fees, I think if you have a very legitimate reason in your business to do anything, unless it is straight, directly offensive,
Right.
you have every right to do it. And we apply our human brain to these rules based off of things like what's culturally appropriate all the time. And it would be very easy to challenge some of those thoughts if there's real reason. Because a lot of that stuff, when it comes to like business mechanisms specifically, is way more about how you've presented it,
Yeah.
the communication on it, how you moderate it in real time in terms of like customer service. Those factors play into it more than the other things. So you should always consider it, but I wouldn't say that there's ever a rule not to. Sometimes it's like, how do you create the same scenario in a different way, a more creative way? So this poster, for example, I know where their studio is. I agree. It's not culturally normal to charge a no-show fee. That doesn't mean that you can't do it, for sure. But if you were to try to add an extra fee on, you might not even be able to do it payment processing wise, and they would legitimately come and ask you about it. So that mechanism of that may not work. But the mechanism of you lose the class, too bad, that would work. And so that would maybe be the path in that case.
So you're positing, Josh, that like people don't, a lot of, and I'm not, I know that you're not saying anyone specific is doing this, but you're positing that people actually don't have the problem they think they have. Like, so actually they don't have like,
All the time.
so like, well, I know, I like in general, I know that's
Yeah.
a thing, but like this specifically, so you're saying maybe, so essentially the problem that they think exists, I think I'm missing something. I thought the issue that we were solving for is that the classes are packed and people can't get into those classes. And so we need to like make space for those people. One of the problems that's coming up is that there actually is space because people aren't canceling. So like
Yes.
so that is a problem.
And then, yes,
Yes. And there's also in that equation, if you have someone who takes a space and then doesn't show, and then you don't have any charge or effect to them, you are actually losing theoretical money in the business. And if your pricing strategy is such that all classes are full all the time and you can't therefore sell and onboard new members, and you're capped in the dollars per class you can make per person because of your current pricing strategy, you've now capped your business. And so in that is the problem, what you're describing. Yes, from a zoomed out thing, what I'm suggesting is this conversation is coming up a lot right now. I can think of 5 studios off the top of my head that have switched away from a pricing strategy we designed with them years ago to limited per month model, where now they have 6 options or whatever. And I know for a fact that they are nowhere near capacity and almost never sell a class out and do not have a wait list. So
why?
why
Yeah.
do that? And
I
so
think
there is a couple of other reasons, but like it's just for an owner to answer a question like this, it's always going through the additional upfront effort to really be able to clearly articulate. And what I mean by that is you got to be able to write it down so that I could understand it.
Right.
The actual problem you're trying to solve is very often we're just doing something to feel like we're doing something, or we're solving a symptom. And when you're only solving a symptom, you accidentally might choose the wrong mechanism to solve what you're trying to solve because you haven't identified the real problem. That's why we say often, like at the summit too, just if you can very accurately identify the problem and clearly articulate it, that you're half of the way to solving it. That's 50% of it right there. Like that's actually the entrepreneurial skill to really develop.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think one thing that happens with all of this waitlist, blah, 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 is let's back it all the way up to the beginning. Again, let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. When we begin with ABC. Anyway, do you have a clearly defined waitlist and no-show cancellation policy? Because a lot of times where this is like, people are on a wait list and people are canceling and there's no consequence, that is creating a problem. So maybe the solution is, okay, we have to implement have a clear policy. Oftentimes there is no clear policy, and or everybody overrides it. I've seen that a lot too.
Yeah.
It's like, I can get you into class. Oh, you don't worry, I'll put you into class. We'll see that type of thing. So I think part of it is when you're looking at this specific problem is backing it up to what is your policies, what is your capacity, what is your wait list window, what is your cancellation window, what is your wait list window? Are you actively moving people off of the wait list into class kind of thing? Are you reaching out and doing those type of things? And then if you have people that are not showing up and you're losing the revenue and people can't get in off the wait list, then maybe that is a thing where, depending culturally, that you charge, and then you have to rule that out. So again, going back to what is the reason why this is happening, to Josh's point. And I think where the poster said is, in a small space and like that, if you culturally not, then just do a limited, just don't even do an unlimited. Or if it's unlimited, it's like an annual and it has such a high price ticket that if they don't show up, okay. I don't know where I was going with that, but I get
No,
asked,
you're right. This specific scenario, I actually would recommend to them to consider a limited membership and ask their, but what they're asking is like, would it be too many options? In their specific instance, I would just ask the unlimited
I would
completely.
actually unlimited. Yeah, just have limited. That's what I was going to say.
Just for the sake of non-confusion, I would have a low use monthly and a high use monthly plus one class pack. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
And if you
And if
don't show
you
up,
want, yeah, you just lose your classes.
lose
And
your
if you
class.
want more than the X times per month thing, you do that and whatever. You get a discounted drop-in rate.
Yeah, like a member drop-in.
Whatever. You can solve that pretty easily. For this specific instance, that would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
The
again, capacity, looking at the capacity of your room. I think that also takes into effect what your pricing strategy is as well, I think.
we've talked about this for years. Carol and I were talking about like, what would we do if I was starting a studio today? Like how would I do it? How would I charge? What would there's a few things, but one of the elements that absolutely, I can't tell you exactly what the equation would be because it depends on market factors, but like I would be spending a lot of effort on the calculation of the supply and demand. Like the last studio I had, we had a class at its absolute peak at 67 people. All right, normal capacity was 55, and we averaged across all classes 35, but our busiest classes were 45 to 50 always. And so that was cool, but that prohibited scheduling things that we could do. It was like really intense for how you taught. Like it actually changed the product. And so I don't know. I would probably build a smaller, more capacity controlled situation studio if I was doing it today for these reasons we're talking about, where then you actually want demand to be higher than capacity. That is a great business decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why airlines fucking suck, because people are going to fly in. Like it's not like you got an option.
Yeah.
There's not a bunch of empty flights all the time. Like they figured this thing out. The airlines are coming to my mind because how they've solved this too. They just oversell every flight. That's why you get bumped off flights. They know X% on average is not going to show up. And if we have to bump someone, we'd have to compensate them, but their margin's so high, it doesn't actually cost them anything. So their solution is we'll just sell 10% more than there are seats at every moment on a flight and then just screw with people's lives because there's no actual mechanisms to control that for us.
Yeah.
You could do that in the studio. I'm
Yeah.
not recommending that.
So what do you feel? That's a good, interesting question. I guess it also depends on your market, but if you were to open this, because, and I got the space picked out at the end of my street and, great look. Anyway, it's like, if you were to start a studio today, what would the capacity, Carol, what would you set? Because what's pure hot? What is it, like 40 something?
So, we have fit at most 68 people in that room.
So what is the
It's too many.
everyday
Much.
comfortable? Yeah, too much. But
So every day, some
comfortably-
classes, so I think what we found, because we used to not have capacity set, way back in the day. And then through COVID, it's changed. And I found that as a teacher, just like Josh was saying, it's like one, it gets to be too much for the teacher to handle when the room is too full, and then it's uncomfortable for the students. So you're trying to find that sweet balance. Right now, our IHP max is 45, but we'll add a few more teachers in there. So it's regularly 48-ish in the class. And that feels doable. I don't know if that's for if every studio could do that, but that's where we found kind of like that sweet spot.
Okay,
I still think it might be a little too many. 40 might be like a good number.
So question then, if you were to open another studio, what would you put your capacity? Josh, what would you put your capacity at? Would it be 15? Would it be 25? Would it be 30? I mean, what would you think would be a good capacity? I mean, obviously there's a lot of factors that go into that, but if we're looking at, experience of the teacher managing the room, the client experience, controlling, not having these, because we do have some clients that can fit 55, 60 people in a room and they struggle to get the room full. So what would it be?
Well, okay. The business equation is one thing, the comment being, what can the market handle on a dollars per class rate?
Yeah.
Because if it's too small and you want to make $1 million in your studio, you would have to be charging people average $22 a class, which means your drop-in's 50. And now we're up in Pilates territory where like your yoga market might not accept that. So if you wanted to do that, you're asking a whole new question. You're changing your vision for like, this isn't just a public yoga class anymore. Now we're selling spots in yoga trainings.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different product. So there's some equation there, but that completely aside, me personally,
Yeah.
I
Like,
can teach an hour yoga class and make some contact with and engagement with every person in the class and manage the room energy and the timing of the class and my delivery of things all simultaneously and personally have fun doing it at 30 people.
That's what I was going to say.
I can do it more. I've taught a 200-person class. It's just like what you can do, you just have to sacrifice something. It's like 40, that's pushing it. You start getting 50, 60. I can't even remember everyone's name at that point. Like this it's not possible. 30, I can do it. So I don't know, 30 from a pure teaching standpoint.
I almost like my old studio ended up, I didn't realize it, but we settled on 36 for Bikram, 30 for IHP, and then 20, I think 26 for yen, just because of all the furniture, right?
Yeah.
And I like that. That was the whole studio was small. It was 1,890 square feet. The hot room was just over 1,000. And it worked. Bridget.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say my capacity as a teacher, for all the caveats Josh added, is 30, and that's actually our like 25 is what we're set at, but 30 is what we can actually fit in. And I also was thinking like about what your front desk can handle. Like at a certain point you need 2 front desk people if you've got, so many people in there. And so that's a big part of it. And it again goes back to what it always goes back to when you're talking about any of this stuff, which is like, what's the experience that you want to cultivate for your clientele? And the experience that I'm passionate about creating for clientele is one where they actually feel like they have a teacher, like someone is actually attending to them. They're not just like at in a stadium, like being an unknown, like unnamed person. Josh.
Oh, just as you were saying that, I was thinking like, is there an equation for what a high power yoga class looks like from a business perspective? And there is, I think. There's probably some variance of this. This is just off the cuff. I'm curious what you guys think. But like, I think there's two things you can do. You can either err on the side of everyone is seen. Like I'm actively teaching, I'm actively engaging, I'm teaching the class today. Everyone is seen. And the whole like some people don't want to have attention, whatever. Yeah, sure, but everyone wants to be seen. Like that's the thing.
It's just that.
And so right, and I would err on that side and risk the one person being like, leave me alone out of the 30.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the angle, is like teach the shit out of the class, everyone's seen. Or it's the other side, which is more like the IHP side of it a little bit. And you can do this in the class where the class itself is just so fun and so insane, and you're just kind of left to your own devices, which is not my personal teaching style, but like I've been in that class where it's a pretty dope class and I would want to come back the next day, and I'm like excited about it as a product. So I think it's one or the other
Yeah.
that you're calibrating to. I think studios don't decide. They're somewhere in the middle of those two, and that's often actually the problem, is like the identity crisis.
And that's where it
Carol?
goes. Oh, Carol, go.
Oh, I was just thinking Josh and I were at a studio with 100 people capacity room. And for sure, when they were regularly having 75 plus people in certain classes. So, but I think the experience that they were providing was that like it's cool, it's like a vibe in there. And so they may not have been able to reach every single person, but there was something about it that's really enticing to come back to. Also, they did hands-on correction, so that's another way to maybe connect with people without knowing their name, um, and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's doable, but it's sort of like what kind of experience do you want to provide?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then also looking at what your KPIs tell you, right? Is like what your KPIs tell you too in terms of retention and stuff like that. But I was just going to say, but to Britt, what we've been talking about a lot lately, and I know I've been working on calls, and Bridget, you have, and Carol have, it's like the class experience. That's where if you have like an IHP class and a traditional yoga class where you define that experience so that the teacher knows what type of class they're teaching.
Yeah.
So so the experience is similar. Because it is teaching the IHP class is very different than teaching a vinyasa, is very different than teaching a Bikram class. And you might have teachers that teach all three, and they need to understand that this is the class experience you're delivering when you're teaching this class, when you're teaching this class, and when you're teaching this class.
Yeah.
Right. So that again goes back to what is it the client experience.
Well, and I would just spin off that point to say we're in a moment where, and this is not a new moment, it's ongoing, the homogenization of products in the yoga and fitness world is kind of insane. Like what out there is truly different? It's hard to, like, for a minute it felt like Orange Theory, but really, like, no, not at all. It's got some gimmicky stuff. It's defined though, like it's clear what it is. But so this sort of like everyone slowly calibrates to the center creates opportunity that when you really define, like, no, when we teach a class here, it's IHP, but it's not IHP. It's Carol's IHP class, and that means this. And that's the subtlety that I think helps someone really break out in the market, where the previous concept of like, well, over there they do flow, and over here we do hot, and over here we do yin, and that was the differentiator. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
So, and class experience starts before the class. I mean, there's so many other elements of this, but holy cow, when you're talking about class experience and retention and KPIs and et cetera, we've been screaming from the rooftops for 100 years at this point. Like, your fucking front desk and what happens there and how you engage people. Like, I've literally seen it where, controversial take, a studio has
Just a
mediocre classes.
yeah.
Like, they're just kind of not actually anything that special.
Mhm.
And they've got a rock star front end team and they're crushing it. I've
And
also, and the
oh, sorry.
reverse. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, I was gonna say that it's actually a good hack if you still are working on developing what your classes look like. And because that is a big ass project of like really, especially if you go into it without a plan and then you're suddenly like, fuck, I've been open for 2 years and I realize my product, like I have a product problem. That's a big project. If you just have like a rock star front desk staff, that can hide and cover up a lot of shit you have going on in your classes. So it's actually like something you can work to your advantage. Carol.
Actually, I was going to say the reverse. I was just on vacation last week. I took 4 classes at this one studio. I cried at 2 out of the 4 classes just from like the experience that I had, but their front desk sucked. So it's like I would go back for the class experience, but I'd like to give them a little advice on the front end of things.
Well, you should reach out to them and have them book a free coaching call, Carol.
I know, I should. But
Carol, here's the follow-up question. It's hard because you're a coach, but like from if you try to be just the consumer of the product, then what do you buy at that studio?
there's definitely, you could tell that there's a big community there. People were talking in the room before class, and the experience was, profound. And I had a great time. It's a tough class. It is very well defined. I don't really want to say, Terry, the name of the studio.
Don't say it on here, but
Just-
tell us later.
I'll tell you after. But no, the product was very well defined. I knew what I was getting. Like they have this moment in class where it's like, I found it really fun. Like liberating movement, and for like 30 seconds, you just get to either dance or do burpees or whatever. Like it's just like this moment of like you just move however you want to. And it was definitely different every time, but had that same sequence of events. Like we're gonna do 2 different flows. We're gonna break for abs, pause, dance break, last flow. Like I just knew that was coming every single time.
Your favorite class, John,
And
dancing.
well, again, you could do it was I'm calling it a dance break.
Love it. I think it's
You
great.
could do I sometimes
fun. But
yeah. But yeah, it was definitely well defined, hard, fun, and one of my favorite things is that we held Goddess Squat, and Pink Pony Club was playing, and everyone in the room was singing Pink Pony Club, and it was the best.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wish I was
Nice.
there.
Nice.
It was Pride in the area, so we were celebrating. It was a
yeah.
Pride club.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question of like, what do you buy? I guess what I was teeing up a little bit is the idea that like you go back to that studio for the product. I would debate that the average first purchase is the low barrier purchase. It's the like, all right, I'm going to keep going. I'll buy a 10 pack. Or like, I'll buy this, but I'm not going to roll up in the first month and throw the credit card down and be like, but I want the VIP annual package for the next year with the service, whatever. Here's $2,500. Like, because of the front desk part. It's like, you've got me. And now also you have to sell me a few more times to get me all the way there, maybe.
God, it's such a shame, Carol, because if this place had like a sick front desk, like this could be like the dream. Like that's like it's such a shame when you see that shit because it's actually not that hard, I think, to have a great front desk staff. I just do not think it's that hard.
No.
And that's actually the easy part is the front desk shift. So or like the front desk staff and not so easy, but yeah, so it's just such a shame. It's just low-hanging fruit they're missing.
it can cause the big, I mean, it's like you said, low hanging fruit. And it's one thing that it's, automatically their sales will start improving if they just hire good people and train them up. And conversely, you got to stay on top of them because they can get sloppy over time.
Yeah.
And saw that firsthand yesterday, the day before, day before on a call, and looking at KPIs and noticing that, intro purchase rate has declined a little bit. So we jumped on the security cam and was actually watching what was happening. We couldn't hear. Now the owner went in and saw there was absolutely nobody new. It was all members, but yet based on what we saw, no interaction happened.
Yeah.
And they've trained their staff. It's like, I'm like, okay, now we know where we need to spend some time. Like always, it's not just about training them. What makes them rock stars is that you train them and then you retrain them and you monitor them and you check in with them. And it's just like a yoga teacher. It's not a set it and forget it. It's a set it, optimize, retrain, revise, re-inspire, all of that stuff. Because otherwise it's just going to become ho-hum. It
Yeah,
can become
yeah, you
ho-hum.
have to put a system of enforcement in. It's not, there is enforcement from a managerial standpoint, but it's like the system itself should create the outcome you want, at least to a certain bar.
Yeah.
Carol, in this studio, the classes you took, the instructor of the classes, were they engaged? Were they excited? Like, what was their like vibe and feeling delivering the class?
They all had great enthusiasm, and there was, I think the reason that I kind of got emotional is they all had a really strong message. They would start with,
Mm,
maybe a quote or something, setting an intention for class, and they were really good at weaving that through the entire class. And the music was really loud. I don't know, like sometimes I don't like that, but there was something about this space, it made sense. And they were really good at just like the entire experience. They were in it. You could tell they were really
yeah.
focused and they were seeing people. I'd hear them be like, hell yeah, Carol, whatever. Like, just like doing my thing. And I'm like, did they say me? I don't know. They were looking at people. So it was really cool. So
Wow, that's so amazing.
Now, same class, same formula, same volume of music. The person's not engaged, not excited, whatever. Even the words are the
when we're
same. Is it as good?
no.
Now it's annoying.
Right. It's annoying.
Hmm.
Why would that be any different at your front desk?
Right.
Like it's really that simple to your point, Terry, of like you have to, it's not just training, it's like buy-in plus the how training plus the ongoing system level like recurring support and accountability on it to maintain the buy-in part. That's what happens at a front desk. Is like I'm like, okay, cool, like yep, I do want the business to succeed and I should try to help people and whatever, and but then like no one's telling me about it, there's no reason for me to look at it all the time, and my brain just calibrates to ease because I'm a human being, and I'm like, or I could just sit on this chair behind the desk during signing because it's all members, say nothing to anyone about anything and get paid the exact same amount of money. I'm gonna do that. Like subconsciously, it's kind of like that.
Or fix my hair, or do this, or do that, or read a book. It's just like, it was a little eye-opening to say the least. So needless to say, we're going to be working on some of those things. So
Hmm.
yeah.
How do you, okay, so let's end it
How do
off
you,
with this then. Like, how do you practically do that? How do you recalibrate when a team starts to deviate? Because that's just going to happen. What do you put in place to make sure that that doesn't happen? What do you actually do? What's a practical step?
Carol's fly on the wall.
I love fly on the wall. Start there. I mean, if you don't have a camera like this studio, you need to be that, oh, I'm just off here in the corner doing some work, but you're really taking notes on how your front desk and teachers are interacting with staff. Um, I think at this point, there's probably some KPIs that the studio would be able to say, okay, this is directly correlating to how you guys are behaving at the front desk.
Mhm.
So, we used to be at this level and now it's gone to here. Let's get back to where we were before. And yeah, some retraining would be needed.
To bring it back to the very first thing we talked about too, I'm thinking from what you're talking about, Carol, is like it's so easy to do that in like a positive, upbeat way. Like it's so you don't need to be like coming in like bringing the hammer down. Like you just say like I was just talking to a client about this yesterday. She was talking about this teacher she has that is just constant like whatever, she has a lot of issues, but like and I was just like, well, let's like role play. Like how could we bring this up to her in a way that like uplifts everybody in the outcome of that. It doesn't have to be like here's where all the ways you're bad, but like here are some ways that we can make our clients feel so seen, so heard. And, you know, for your money motivated front desk, which hopefully a lot of them are, like, here's the ways we're gonna, you know, change these KPIs, and like, wouldn't that feel amazing as a team?
I think the like absolutely. It's a sale as well. It's like just like you want them to sell your memberships but what are you actually selling? You're selling the transformation that a habitual yoga practice offers. That's the actual sale. As the manager or the owner training your front desk team, what are you selling them? You're selling them on engage people and get them to want to be part of this community, and that we are here to support them and that we're friendly with them, and like we're gonna save the world by getting people to fucking buy an intro. Like that's what you're selling them.
Hmm.
And so you have to be the one who, from their perspective, has like drunk the Kool-Aid. Like if you're trying to calibrate them up to that, you got to be way, way over on
Totally.
that side of things, unapologetically. That's how inspiration works. Is someone's like kind of crazy in a certain way, and
Yeah.
you're not trying to become them exactly, but like they pull you in that direction. So I would
Yeah.
add very practically, and there are some specifics of how you do this. We always talk in coaching calls, but like what can you put in place systemically that is easy, that actually will happen all the time, but that would constantly create the awareness of the
Yeah.
thing you're trying to solve? Like, how would it be that if I'm on a shift at the front desk at your studio and there were 3 new people who came through and I didn't speak to them,
Where's the accountability?
like it, without you ever doing anything, it would punch me in the face that happened. And
Yeah.
I would immediately, with absolute clarity, be like, whoa, there were 3 brand new people and I did not even speak to them. It would just every single time. What's
Yeah.
the system you can put in place that, yeah,
Do you want us to say
cool.
what the system is, or should we wrap this up?
Let's wrap her up.
Okay.
Book a free coaching call. I'll tell you all the systems
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah, it's secret.
Post in the group and it's not secret, but we're out of
No,
time.
I was just joking. All right, that's a wrap on this week's weekly roundup. Tune in every Friday right here on Facebook, or subscribe to Studio Cult TV on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you are listening from. And soon Apple, right? Soon iTunes or whatever it's called now. See you next week. Bye.